All right, everybody, we're going to call to order the regular meeting of the Neshoba Regional School Committee on January 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m., 6:01 p.m., excuse me. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please rise. Say it along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, guys, so on the agenda first is citizens' comments. And seeing the gallery as empty, I am going to recognize no citizens' comments at this time. And we are going to move to executive session. So I'm going to turn to my vice chair for a motion.
Okay, I move to enter into executive session at 6:01 p.m. Session A will be pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grants in aid requirements, review of executive session minutes in accordance with open meeting law, MGL Chapter 30A, Section 22F and G. Session A to include the school committee and Superintendent Downing. And Session B pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, the superintendent of schools. Session B to include the school committee and Superintendent Downing. The school committee will return to open session at the conclusion of these strategy sessions.
And I'll second that. Any discussion? All right, none. Let's take the roll call vote. Dana? Yes. Scott?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Yeah. Myself, yes. Sean?
Yes.
Yes. So we are in executive session. Just gonna wait for her.
It was sudden, huh?
Left? Yeah.
She'll be here soon. We can carry on now that we are back in regular session. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move forward with the consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda of January 3rd, 2024, containing draft meeting minutes of December 13th, 2023, and the warrants of January 5th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor? Very good. So moving on from the consent agenda, the school committee chairperson update there's nothing to report that's not already on the rest of the agenda. So we'll keep moving on to our favorite part, the student representative report. And Hansi is here with us.
Hi everyone, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So we have the wrestling team placed top 15 out of 23 schools in the Dan Bellaboni Holiday Classic Tournament this past weekend in Framingham. We had 6 wrestlers placed in the top 5. We're hosting a Future Freshman Night event tomorrow evening for our 8th graders. Sports, clubs, student ambassadors, and Nash the Wolf will be there. Our band will be playing and the cheerleading squad will also be there. Robotics will be set up, mini art demonstrations, and curriculum stations will be a part of this exciting evening as well. Our DECA competition is coming up on January 9th and 10th. We have roughly 200 students competing this year, where we'll have half of them competing on the 9th, half on the 10th. A model classroom was set up today in room 206 for students and teachers to give feedback about possible furniture for the new high school. And the spring musical is coming up, and the name of the show is The Drowsy Chaperone. The dates are March 15th, 16th, and the 17th. On December 10th, the Drama Club inducted 6 new members into the International Thespian Society, 2 being seniors, 1 junior, and 3 sophomores. And finally, the National Art Honor Society will have its induction ceremony on February 15th in Neshoba's library at 6 p.m. and the ceremony is open to the public, so anyone interested is more than welcome to attend. That's it for tonight.
Fantastic, thanks, Hansi. Any questions for our student representative? All right.
Great. Had a chance to talk with Hansi, if you don't mind me sharing a little bit. The chair, myself, I believe the vice chair might be joining us. We have a meeting with the student council at Neshoba Regional High School next Wednesday. We're going to have a planning session with Dr. Boynton tomorrow. The focus and goal of this meeting is to be with Hansi and Ava and engage with the students on what are the types of questions and things that students bring forward and discuss, and lifting up sort of that student voice through student council and our representatives. So we look forward to doing that work with you, Hansi, and with Ava as well.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
She just
for having us.
rescheduled next Wednesday. Also did.
She's not there, but she announced that you're welcome to come in and talk to us still.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. She asked me to reschedule to the 24th because she's judging DECA.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'll be at DECA as well on the 10th. So,
You'll be at DECA as well on the 10th?
yeah, I present on the 10th.
Well,
Madam Chair, we can
no
postpone
rush,
this.
so.
Yeah. Okay. So to be determined, public coming soon. Okay, so we'll reschedule that, but we are going to be having that conversation with our student council as we look to continue to be mindful and think about what the student experience is in our school system.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
So your chair and your vice chair will be the representatives for you, but if the rest of the committee would like to provide us with any insight or ask us to voice any of your thoughts in that meeting, please feel free to shoot us an email. Shoot me an email, please. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks, Hansi, for being here.
Of course,
As
thank
always,
you.
appreciate it. So our second favorite part of the meeting is going to be the superintendent's report. We're going to head over to that part, and Kirk, I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee, for once again giving me the opportunity this evening. In the superintendent's report, this is my first opportunity publicly to congratulate Principal Lenore Zevelik of Center School as being appointed our principal at Center School. Ms. Zevelik has shown a great deal of commitment and drive to building the relationships and building her core values and imprinting those in the Center School community. She'll be going through the same processes that we typically do with a first-year principal to our school system through an entry process. Given that we are in sort of a mid-cycle mode, I think we'll look to formally bring that in front of the committee at the beginning of next year as we do that. But we congratulate Ms. Zevelik, and we're confident she's going to be an outstanding leader for that school. The next element of the report is the ADC update. To remind the committee, 4 times a year, we come back to you with a report from the Assabet Valley Collaborative, which is the collaborative we participate in with multiple school districts to do things like negotiate common contracts, special education services, common contracts for transportation, whatnot. And so in doing so, the director is charged with providing 4 reports back to the school committee. And so this is a report that goes out to all the participating districts with Assabet Valley Collaborative, of which the primary topic this time was the annual audit that is conducted by the collaborative. We don't take any action or votes or anything on that. This is an information-only piece for this committee. But to know that as we talked with the auditor in last month's meeting, and recognizing as we've looked at operating costs exceeding revenue in recent years, the reopening of the Professional Development Center at Assabet Valley Collaborative, now that the construction process is going to be completed in January, is going to allow us to really open up Assabet Valley Collaborative in terms of some of the offerings that are happening there and the programming as well. So we're very optimistic about that work that's going to be coming forward there. And so before we move on to the equity audit strategic work, I'll take any questions on the first two items.
All right, seeing none, we'll keep moving.
I do want to point out, because I was asked a question about this for the benefit of the whole committee, is that in reference to the ABC really, boy, it was a tough year emotionally for the collaborative. It hosts multiple special education programs, and one of those programs is a very severe needs program, and the students in that program have medically fragile conditions that are very, very tragic at times. And unfortunately, 3 of the students in that very small program passed away, all within a period of 3 months of each other last year. And so our hearts went out to all the families, of course, but the staff members that have really, these children have grown up in their care through these programs, and so that was tough. And while the fiscal balance sheet of that particular program is not our primary concern, we know that the references to enrollment were about, it's a specialty program that's very, very small. And so in the audit, any references to maybe some balances in that area is due to some very unfortunate causes. I wanted to say that because I don't know if the text in the update explained that as well. And again, our heart goes out to those families that experience that loss. Okay, moving on to that, I want to talk a little bit about our update on the equity audit. And Ms. Friend and I are, I think, going to tag team this one. I'm going to talk first about the audit update specifically, and Assistant Superintendent Friend will talk about a grant we've recently been awarded that will help us along. We had a planning session today with our consultants. We'll be appearing at the DRJ meeting on Wednesday evening to engage with the DRJ and share with them sort of the scope of the work that's going to be done this spring. We're not going to be doing any focus group conversations on Wednesday night. This is a chance to meet and describe what the plan is, and it's going to be coming in 3 phases, of which we will be reporting back to this committee 3 times. End of February, end of April, and then our last meeting June 5th. And the first phase of the project, we're going to be doing some surveying work and a lot of data analysis. The second phase of the project will be through environmental examination and those types of things. And then the focus group conversations. Thank you. I told you I was going to need your help on this one as I look through. And so we'll be bringing that information forward to you as we come. But anyway, we're looking forward, Dr. Ryan, to coming to Dear Jay on Wednesday evening to talk more about that work, because it's going to, as a learning organization, this is an opportunity for us to learn about ourselves, to understand ourselves, and be able to make the decisions we need to make moving forward to provide equity and access for all kids in our school system. So with that, I want to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Friend. She's going to share a little bit about the teacher diversification grant. So,
good news.
Yes.
Yes. So we're excited to share that we have been notified most recently that we successfully received a teacher diversification grant in the amount of $42,802. This was a grant that we had submitted in July, and we've been waiting on pins and needles to hear about the award. The grant application was involved. It required multiple parts, narrative sections, data analysis, and a pretty strong articulation of alignment with our strategic plan with concrete and actionable steps. So when we received notification that we received the award successfully, we were really, really pleased. The grant application funding area's focus was intended to support our continued equity work, specifically focusing on school culture support and professional development and training, which aligns with our strategic plan, strategic objective number 3, culture and belonging. Specifically, the grant funding will be used to support culturally responsive professional development and training led by Dr. Khalees Warnum from KW Diversity for 2 parallel paths, one for our district leadership council and the other for our district equity team, of which we now have 35 members. Through these trainings, our intention and hope is that our teams will develop a strengthened understanding of cultural proficiency with a specific respective emphasis on leading and supporting culturally responsive schools with the intended outcome of creating an even stronger school culture and climate where everyone sees a place that they belong. The training includes becoming a culturally proficient leader for our leadership council and the development of district teams around diversity, equity, and inclusion course for our district equity team. The professional development series will begin this month, will extend through June for our leadership council and into next year for our equity team. And I was creating this update, I thought perhaps the committee may wonder what's the connection with the title of the grant, Teacher Diversification, and the intention of the grant, which is working on strengthening our school culture and climate through professional development around culturally responsive practices. For your awareness, the grant offered 4 options. 1, to create high school pathways, which we're working on through our Innovation Pathways program already. 2nd, financial incentives to recruit and retain classroom teachers through financial incentives. A 3rd option to provide financial assistance for teacher candidates as they progress through their teacher programming and coursework. And the 4th option, which is the option we chose, which was to focus on school culture and support, which is we know is an area of continued growth for us. That involved creating your own plan and articulating your own rationale. So we opted for this last option, our rationale being that our continued focus on school culture and support and equity work is critical. Not only will strengthening our school cultures benefit our current students, faculty, and staff, we hope it to have the additional and important outcomes of attracting a diverse teacher workforce. The training with Dr. Warnum will equip school and district leaders with the necessary skills not only of supporting and leading a culturally responsive school, but also being culturally proficient leaders as they engage in the hiring and recruitment of teachers. We're really excited about this opportunity, and we're really excited about the opportunity to complement our equity efforts with this professional development and training with Dr. Warnum. It's pretty fantastic.
That will conclude our report tonight.
Awesome. So I have a quick question, but maybe others will as well. I wonder, with all of the equity audit and equity work, how does the school committee interface here? What's our role?
Yeah, so we are going to be, we have some planning to do with our principals tomorrow, and we are going to be laying down a calendar of events for both the community. For our school committee, I think as we put that down, we would need to have a discussion about having a retreat type session that would be designated for that topic only. And so I would think we'd want to look at doing that before mid-March. To have that opportunity to engage in the focus group conversation.
All right. Any other questions about the equity audit work?
I know earlier in the year we had some concerns about the cost of the audit.
Yeah.
Is that right? I wonder where we landed on the cost and then where we would find those funds in the budget. In other words, what cost center, where would we find that?
Yeah, well, I think this was one of those opportunities where I think a lot of diligence and really defining what it is we needed. It also, DRJ's been very, very helpful. The guidance document that they produced really helped our 2 consultants pin some things down, led by Dr. Meg Mayo-Brown, former superintendent. So the total cost of this process we're going to go through is going to be about $20,000. The total cost of the professional development, I don't have offhand, but that's going to be somewhere upwards of the 40,000 mark, 35,000?
34,000 and the difference between the cost of the professional development and the grant is going to help support the equity audit as well.
Yeah. And it's also helping support us with, as you know, we tested the thought exchange tool. And we can then use that, or we're going to be using that tool in the equity audit process as well, because we thought it garnered some good information and surfaced some things. So we're going to be able to do this all within our budget and within the context of the grant. So the grant really relieved
Right.
any pressure valves that we were experiencing there.
So is that funding found in, is that system-wide? Is that where that money is coming from? The money that
Professional development, I believe.
Teaching and learning.
Teaching and learning professional.
Teaching and learning professional.
I'm really excited for this update about the equity audit and the grant that we received. I think it's really good news for the district. I'm wondering about the focus groups, because it looks like the scope of work for the equity audit is focusing on 4 buckets, like instructional practices, culture and climate, staffing and professional learning, and then family and community engagement. So will you be doing focus groups in each of those buckets, like focus groups with family?
It's a great question. No, it won't be done in that way.
Okay.
It's going to be done in a different way. So we'll be sending out some survey information. Our goal right now is to get that survey out by January 15th, I think is, right? This is the 8th, so the 15th is next Friday. And then what we're going to be able to do is in that demographic information, we'll be able to send out some targeted emails from those responses to families to say, can you come participate in this discussion based upon how you responded to those questions? Because there's folks that are going to want to come and talk about equity in terms of race and their experience and their identification in schools. Some are going to want to talk in terms of sexual identity and sexual orientation. Some are going to want to talk in terms of intellectual disabilities. So that survey information is then going to help our consultants identify, oh, this cluster of people have an interest in this area, this area. So it gets very fine-tuned to those that want to engage in that, of which the entering instrument is going to be the survey.
And will the survey that goes out, will people have multiple opportunities and reminders? Because I think the last time there were several emails, which was so helpful to me as a parent, because I miss those emails so often. If this is like the entry point into people participating in the process, I want to make sure that folks get several reminders about taking that survey. So I think this is so important.
Yeah, I would agree with you. What I would also like to point out is when doing this work, that we want to make sure we're doing good sampling. Engaging with the mass of all constituents becomes such an albatross that it's unmanageable.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be doing that. We have our key communications consultant in terms of getting out that information that is going to be in charge of sending out those things. Yes, there will be multiple reminders, and then we're going to be very targeted about it in terms of a lot of the focus group conversations so that we can learn some of the details there. That's where we have our consultants guide us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah, Dina.
Sorry, does this Meg Mayo Brown, she's from School and Maine Institute? The School and Maine Institute, is that where?
The leader.
No. She is a retired superintendent, former superintendent in Barnstable and Fall River.
Yeah, I just
Is that
Googled
the-
her. It looks like she's a part of the School and Maine Institute. So, and she's one of the coaches in that institute. So are we hiring their firm or her?
No. This is yeah. I know what you're referring to now.
sorry.
Thank you. No, this is the consulting business that she leads. Yes.
Any other questions? Fantastic. And I think that is it for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, everybody, let's keep going. New business. There are a couple of items on the new business list here that are going to be moved. So first and foremost, our CPAC leaders are not able to be with us this evening, so we're going to be putting them on a future meeting date that is not to be determined at this point in time, but they are happy to join us at some point in the future to give us an update. Superintendent evaluation training, I think this is an error on my part. It does not belong here, so without objection, I would like to put it on the February 3rd, 6th, 7th meeting, the first February meeting. That is the time at which Kirk is going to provide us with his formative evaluation presentation. A moment before that, we will provide the training so that the committee can make sure that they understand completely what their responsibility is.
May I make a comment?
Please.
And then anything from the committee, if you can share with the chair, the format that I shared with you at the beginning of the year in goal setting is sort of the structure I'm going to come back with at the formative meeting with, so, and express it in that way. So, and then that's what the summative structure and format will look like as well. So if there's something in there that you feel is missing, or you want to give me some guidance through the chair, I'll be happy to make any adjustments you need.
All right, so with those changes understood, no objections, we're gonna pick up the other items of new business here, and we're gonna start with the extended day fee review. And I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we'll do one general introduction because I have a feeling that Mr. Mulcairn will be speaking to many items here. So our Finance and Operations Director, Mr. Ross Mulcairn, is going to be speaking on this and on the business items in the packet today. We'll start with the extended fee review.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to present the FY25 proposed rate changes for extended learning, facilities rentals, preschool tuition, and then further on the proposed changes to the daily substitute rates. I'd like to preface that I took the feedback and questions from the process of rate reviews from last year and solicit further feedback from Budget and Warrant on the same before building the rates for FY25. So beginning with extended learning, in reviewing the current year rates and previous rates, several points were considered, including how those previous rates been, what does the revenue cover, how have the funds been used beyond salaries in the form of offsets to insurance, electricity, fuel, etc., and then what do other local districts charge for similar before and after school programs. So annually rates have increased anywhere between 0 and 4% over the last several years. It's within the budget documents, but tuition covers salaries, those offsets for utilities and insurance, as well as supplies, materials, contracted services, and the like. There's a link on each of the slides to the comparable programs of on-site, before and after school programs from some of those local area districts as well. Just in summary, the rate increases addresses our contractual obligations. It addresses increases in utility insurance costs, and also reflects rates still that are within the similar rates for like programs in local districts. I'd like to highlight that for both the morning and the after-school program, that we've provided a discount for enrollment as more days are selected. So for example, an enrollment at 5 days now offers a 10% discount, which is a change in practice to benefit those who are enrolled in more days, and that does make up the majority of our enrollments, those 5-day programs.
We can perhaps talk about each one individually. Do you want to take questions, Ross, as they go?
So yeah, I mean, I could take, if you want to put up morning, I can answer questions about that, and then afternoon, or talk between the two. It doesn't matter to me.
No, I mean, continue with the extended learning stuff, and then
That's-
end with that.
That's it.
That's-
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not. I could read the rates, but I.
We're at 9 o'clock here, Russ.
Yeah.
What questions do we have, Dana?
Just a quick one, does any of these increase in rates create more openings in the availability? Like
So I'll
slots?
work with Ms. Hannigan, who's the director of the program, to look at that. We know, especially in Stowe.
Yeah, there's slots in
We're
here.
obviously, we have to think about our ratios of supervision as foremost, and also space. So that's something that we're aware of, and we're going to take a look at what can be done, if anything, moving forward.
Mike?
Mr. McCarron, the increases from FY24 to FY25 range somewhere between 20 to 40% in some cases. And when you couple that with the comparisons, it looks as if we're catching up. So in some cases we're still low. Can we expect similar increases in future years, or is this the jump?
Well, I think I'm gonna project that a jump of this kind, the sort of the change of this would not happen again at this level. However, no guarantees on contractual obligations, utility costs, things like that. But this does bring us to what is comparable, but still keeps us in, I think, a pretty good, healthy range for our families that are paying for the tuition. The big piece on this, in my mind, is not just the contractual obligations, but as offsets for insurance and utilities have gone up, the actual offsets from the program have not kept pace, so we're looking to help with that. But again, comparable to other programs, I feel good about where we're at, and we may not need to raise similar. That's my hope and my wish for it, but we're not presenting anything beyond FY25 today.
Amy?
Can you just remind me about the timing of the rate changes versus the registration in the program? In other words, families that are registering for next year's extended care will be getting these rates before they register?
Correct. Once they're voted upon, right, then we go into the materials that are available for families for registration for next year. We're also not making any changes to our registration fee, which compared to some other programs is pretty reasonable. Our registration fee, I think, is only $35, so that's one of the pieces.
Sean?
So I'm looking at the comparable spreadsheet that you shared,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just sort of noticing that the other districts seem to charge a lot more for the one-day option.
Yeah,
So
so
I wonder if you could elaborate on that difference and why we're an outlier.
part of the reason is that would be a much more significant jump than it would be going from what's been proposed. So I do see that a lot of them, sort of the entry point is much higher, but sort of the difference between us and the other programs in the area sort of flattens out. It's not as drastic as you go up. So I didn't think that making such a drastic change for the 1 day or the 2 day made sense when the majority of our families enroll at that 3, 4, and certainly 5 day option.
Member Christine?
Yeah, are there charts for comparing the, maybe I've answered my own question as I'm asking it. The comparables that you're giving are for fiscal year 24, but you're proposing fiscal year 25
Correct.
rates. And so, but you're not able to build those charts out because we don't know what other people are.
We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what their cost increases may be.
And so these numbers kind of put us below, our cost next year will be lower than their cost this year.
In some cases, absolutely. Yep.
Any questions?
I was just wondering, do we offer discounts or scholarships to
We do.
families?
Yep.
All right, so that is that. And remember, guys, we're not taking any votes tonight. All of these will be voted on at our next meeting. And it's really going to be the only thing we do at the next meeting other than the budget hearing. Sorry. Workshop, not hearing. Okay. All right, Ross, keep it rolling.
Thank you. So the proposed rate increases for our facility rentals. In the past, we've certainly looked at the comparables. The increases that you see here, for the most part, make up our contractual obligations, and the increases to utilities and the facilities rentals help to offset. So over time, looking at our facilities and rentals and what they do as far as offsets go, we have not really increased at the same rate, so this will help with that. The other piece that I want to keep in mind is that as we move forward with the high school project, we'll have a much different conversation about what that looks like. So I just want to make sure I put that on the table, that it may not align in sort of a trajectory that we have here. We just really don't know what we might do as the new high school is, but that came up during my discussion with facilities, so I figured I'd offer it as well. So the proposed rates are here for our FY25 increases. Again, our nonprofit versus our for-profit. In looking at the amount, the sort of the number of nonprofit versus for-profit that do book with us, we have very few for-profit over time. As of to date for this year, we've only had one for-profit group book any sort of space with us or use our facilities.
Any questions on these proposed changes?
I see you have a line item for AV, but no amounts next to those two.
Right, so we took that off last year, and we sort of can handle that as needed, but we also expect people to be able to handle their own AV. I think some of the times that we've offered our AV, it has not been returned to us in the same condition in which we left it. Either a cord is missing, or maybe something, a setting has changed. So we encourage, obviously, people to bring it out. If a group absolutely needed something, we could have that discussion. The issue is making sure that there's somebody available that can handle and understand the system, and our custodians don't necessarily have that training or that experience, depending upon who's working during that shift that the event's taking place.
So let me just preface this comment by saying I haven't called around to find out what other people charge for this kind of thing, but it appears in the demand figure that you said, saying only one for-profit entity has actually used our facilities, suggests that our for-profit fees are high. Do we have any desire to bring in more revenue by leasing to for-profit enterprises? Would that be a desirable goal? And if so, might that inform that what we should do about our rates going forward?
I think it's a good question, Mr. Powell. Perhaps this is a question we should grow and develop a little bit in the Budget and Warrant Subcommittee.
Sure.
It's an interesting thing with the facility rates. It's a narrative story, but it provides context. I can remember the usage of facilities in my previous school system when new buildings came along. The demand to use it went up dramatically. I'm speculating, and I wonder if with, surrounding school districts that have installed new facilities in recent years can provide experiences. I'm thinking of I'll generalize a dance program, for instance, that wants to be in a contemporary theater with a modern setup. Could be one of those issues. Those are the types of groups that tend to come in. But I think we can study that, and maybe let's bring that to the subcommittee to drill down on, so as we come around again next year for this discussion, we can come in an informed way.
Ross?
I would just also, as you say that and ask that question, I would echo what Superintendent Downing has said. I also wonder about availability. So for our local nonprofit type groups that use these facilities more often, what is the availability for for-profit? Once those are booked, a lot of places, especially our gymnasiums, cafeterias, get booked at the beginning of the year. That take up a lot of that time. So that might be another piece that we look at.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Right.
All right, seeing none, let's move on.
Okay, the preschool rates. So in reviewing the preschool rates, there was consideration of previous rate increases that ranged anywhere from 0% to 3%. I think the 0% was during the COVID time in recent years, and also looked at how the district used the revenue to support preschool salaries over time as well. So for FY25, the 5% increase is being proposed to account for the contractual increases that come not just in the changes in steps of salaries or the COLA changes in the salaries, but also as lane changes. So if the increase in salary is 3%, but we're also not thinking about what lane changes may happen, that can happen as well. What we don't do is lock a specific person in a classroom into, I'll rephrase this. I've been asked, well, why don't we charge, whatever that classroom's role model slots are, can we charge what the teacher or that portion of the teacher costs? And the answer is no, because we'd have discrepancy in our different programs across the district. So I think the 5% offers a healthy rate increase to account for, again, the change in COLA that's part of the contract, as well as potential lane changes that happen as well.
Any questions on that proposal? Can you remind us what the hours are for the preschool program? The full day.
I believe it's 8:45 to 2:45 for a full day. There's a little bit of a discrepancy than the regular K to 5 programs.
Got it. Just a little bit shorter than a normal school day.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion of adjusting even the half-day hours? Because I know that when my child was in preschool, you could barely go grocery shopping before you had to go back to pick them up. So I don't know if you guys are still at capacity all the time.
Yeah, so
But I know a lot of families have said they've looked elsewhere because the hours are just not conducive.
So I understand that. I think, and maybe Anne Marie Stoica, our Director of HR, would better answer the question. However, I would offer that we use the time in between the two sessions for that teacher to have their contractual prep and their contractual lunch. So it can't be a full half day, because then that person wouldn't necessarily have their, and then if we're removing the teacher to let them have their time contractually, we're changing the ratio within the classroom, and we could be out of compliance standards with DESE for the integrated preschool.
Kirk would like to address that.
And Mr. Mulcairn just referenced that as an integrated preschool, a primary function of the integrated preschool is to provide services for students that have IEPs as outlined in their IEP. And it's through their peer seats that we're able to offer that. So the structure is designed around the special education services as opposed to a general opportunity to engage in preschool. So we're looking at that, and I know that's a question out in the community as well, and looking for some potential solutions to more seats in the future for that as well.
All right, so let's keep going. Or was that it? Was that it?
We're at the daily summary review.
Celebrates. Go ahead.
Okay. So lastly, we're proposing a change to the daily substitute rate with the goal of bringing more substitutes into the district, as we are, I think, well aware that there's shortages out there. We're also offering an incentive for those who substitute for us for more than 60 days in a given school year. This is not something that rolls year to year, it's just within the one school year. As we did in review with the substitute nursing rates, we're presenting rates from local districts as a comparison. Just to note on the instructional assistant rate, sometimes it's called paraprofessional, sometimes it's called classroom aide, but those are the rates that we used, and several, but 4 districts did not either respond with that rate or it was not available on their website.
Any questions on that potential increase? Scott?
So how are we doing as far as our ability to attract the number of subs we need to actually fill classrooms as needed?
I would have to get the fill rate from Anne Marie Stoica out of HR. It's low. I know we've recently brought a couple, maybe 6 new subs in the district. We've had some college students, I think, during this time subbing at the elementary and middle level, which helps. But compared to sort of other districts in the area, this makes us more attractive to bring more in. But the actual fill rate, I don't know offhand.
Do we think
I'll say it a different way. It's not good.
So do we think this is going to fix that?
I think what it's going to do is it's going to make us more competitive. The way I look at it is we're putting better bait in the water for what very few fish that are swimming around in it. So we're trying to get those few fish to come to our bait is the best way to put that. These are market conditions of today. And we don't have scenarios where in school systems it used to be that you graduated, you got your license, and you went and you substituted in school systems and you sort of grew your chops that way before you then eventually were awarded a teacher contract. That doesn't happen anymore. And a lot of it is due to people coming in the field. And so what we're trying to do here is put some attractiveness there with that increase. But I think the tool that we're putting in there that we're going to measure is the boost into what you would call your super sub. Once you hit that 60 threshold, you bump up to 150 as a way to get people to commit and work more with us throughout the year. So we think that's going to have some usefulness to us, but we're going to have to let experience kind of tell us the way on this.
So in theory, we could be at the top of the local market if you look at the 150 some number. So you think that might give us some information about what number we need to get to fill our vacancies.
Yeah, and I'm one of the things I'm wondering about is even, let's say our pool of substitutes stays fixed. Will this encourage them more to take jobs early on to get to that level and fill those seats so that we're occupying more there? So a couple of different approaches we're trying to take there.
Mike?
Could you just briefly explain the 60 days in the school year bump up, what that means?
It means that once you have worked 60 days, you get paid $125 per day. On your 61st day, you get paid $150.
So an individual sub has to work 60 individual days. That's what that means.
Yep.
Got it.
And is not included with the long-term sub, because the long-term sub is actually contracted at the BA2 rate, daily rate for the BA2.
Does that compare, is that rate more than the 150 per hour?
Oh, yeah, considerably more. But they have vast more responsibilities in terms of planning and design and meetings and teamwork and all those things.
Sorry, I should have waited for Chandra to be recognized.
I wanted to make sure, can you remind us how many hours this requires people to work each day?
6.5.
6.5.
The comparable I would say to this is our paraeducators work 7-hour days. They're paid for 6.5 hours, 30 minutes of an unpaid lunch is in that contract. So if you apply that same standard to subs, because they're guaranteed 30 minutes of uninterrupted lunch in their day as well, you can think of it as 6 working hours with 30 minutes of unpaid lunch.
Okay.
Just curious about that 60-day number. Just, is that typical of the subs that are here a lot, or is that, where's that number coming from?
Well, Mr. Simon, I knew you would be asking that question. We had a lot of debate around this of what is the number. We landed at a third of the year, and we had some debate. Should we put it at 20 days? And then we thought, well, then you're acquiring that too soon, and I don't know if that's going to create sort of the magnetism that you want in the early months to acquire and build up time to get to that 150. So a lot of our subs are, we have some folks, for instance, that are retired. They don't want to work 5 days a week. Maybe they want to work 2 days a week. Is this incentive going to say, maybe I'll up that to 3 days a week because I can get to that rate? So this is, we're testing the field, and we're going to see how that goes. We'll collect the data on it and see how that plays out. We're coming out of a time where we had none. We had no subs, and we're just trying to cover in buildings and do our best. And so we know we needed to increase just the base sub rate. And so putting in the incentive at the 60-day mark, we're in theory hoping that's going to create interest early on in the year, and then help us build some continuity and some relationships with those folks to keep them on board to the end of the year.
This is a proposal. Is the school committee did we take a vote to approve this, or is this just something you're informing us of that will end up in the budget that we're going to vote?
Yeah, you'll take a vote next week.
Oh.
Yeah.
Chandorsa?
Okay.
Yeah, Chair, is there, it seems to me that at one point in time there was a permanent, lack of a better way to say it, sub in the building. Is there still a permanent sub in each building?
No,
or?
that was our strategy using the last of our ESSER funds from the ESSER grant, and we put a building-based sub in each building, and that was at the BA2 rate in the teacher contract, and so that was a one-time expense. As we were coming out of hybrid and remote learning, we know we needed to address that because we had no subs or ability to do that.
So that was only a pandemic.
Correct. I will say that, and as we filter through our budget requests, principals have mentioned that as being a very beneficial tool.
So would that be something that you would consider?
We're debating if we're bringing that forward to the committee today. So this, I think, is an attempt for us to look at that, to build a substitute pool. And we have had some more substitutes come to us. Interestingly enough, this committee approved the increase in the nursing sub rate, and we were able to collect several nurse subs since that time. And then also working with, there's educational licensure that you need to be a school nurse, but it's not your nursing license. Well, in a substitute scenario, we relieve the requirement of the DESE license for a substitute nurse, allowing for a licensed nurse to substitute for us, and that's opened that up as well. So we're trying these tools in our substitute pools to open up things. But the increase, did that have an impact on the number of folks that came forward? You know, we understand that did draw some interest, so we're hoping this will do so for classroom substitutes and IA substitutes as well.
All right, guys. Thank you very much to Ross and his team, and thank you, Kirk, for bringing all that forward. We will vote on all those things at the next meeting. Now, you are looking for a vote on the Diversity in Education Grant.
Yes.
All right, so Amy, would you like to put forth a motion?
Yes, I move to accept the Teacher Diversification Pilot Program Grant, DESE Fund Code 253, for expenditure as presented in accordance with School Committee Policy DD.
I'll second that. Any discussion on accepting this large sum of money? All right, seeing that, all in favor? Excellent, thank you guys, and congratulations, Teaching and Learning. Great work on that.
Great work.
Well done.
I don't want this moment to pass over. Outstanding work in Teaching and Learning to get this. It was a team of people that put this through, and we got notice of it in short notice, and Assistant Superintendent Friend got straight to work so we could get that submitted. So thank you for that.
Fantastic. That's your. All right, everybody, we are going to go to the most exciting part of our job, and that is revising policy. So for all you policy wonks out there, here we go. So Section D had 3 changes to it. Maybe I'll just hand this over to our policy expert, Amy Vessels. Can you walk us through what we're doing here?
Yeah, the first one, as you can see, there weren't many changes. The first one just said something to the effect of like, you know, the committee, we talked to Kirk about this at our last meeting, the committee would appoint the chief the purchasing agent or whatever, so we changed that wording so it would be chief purchasing officer, which is Ross's title. So that's the only change that was made there to that wording for DJ1. In DJ A1, there's just that new item about the length of time, like after 3 years you have to vote on it or whatever. So that was just one item that was added in for the purchasing authority. And then the last one, they switched some wording around a little bit, but it's not that. So there was a recent thing where it said that, you know, up to $100,000, then it should, like, if a procurement in the amount of $100,000 or less should be attained through, like, basically the amount change, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They put an amount in the new bylaw or whatever. I'm not saying this very well. I know Kirk talked to me about it last time, but they put an amount in, and there it used to be like 50,000, right? I think it was, and they upped it to like 100,000.
So they changed the threshold from 50,000 to 100,000 for when you can just solicit 3 price quotations of what you're looking for. This is applicable to school districts, obviously, which we fall underneath, not municipalities. So as a regional school district, you know, we obviously fall under this. So it benefits us in our ability to be a little bit more flexible, but we can still use the bid process or an RFP process if we want to.
Okay, so this is what we call a first reading. Our policy dictates that any policy that gets changed, we do a first reading, and then next time we'll do a second reading. And if everybody's cool with the second time we take a look at these, then we will approve them. So we're not voting on these tonight. So maybe some questions now, or anything that you think the policy subcommittee needs to alter.
My recollection was that on DJ1 we were going to specify Ross's title along.
Which that's what I put in, yeah.
Where is it?
That's the red line. Chief purchasing officer.
Oh,
Yeah.
the red line isn't the same as the final? Sorry.
Is the new version like the new version that MASC put out, or?
So the new version is, yes, with it corrected to the way MESC, like with it, it's put in, yes.
So for anybody who's not done this before, MASC is our kind of a consultancy that houses our policy manual for us online, and they also have people who scour Supreme Court decisions and legislative changes, and then they create a new model version of pre-existing policies or even new policies, and they send to all of the districts a redlined version which will show the changes, which is what Alita is projecting here. So anything in red is a change. And so a lot of times they will strike stuff, and those are the things that are going to be removed in the new version. And the red text are things that will appear as just black text in the new version.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was thinking of it I thought the red lines were things that we were proposing to change, so that was.
I mean, it's mostly MASC that just says, like, this is what you need to change. And then they also give us, like, the non-red version with all the changes made. And so if we were to approve the redlined version, what will be uploaded to our new policy manual will be the new version document. You good? Sure.
So in the third one, I don't have
EJE.
Yes, the last one that we looked at. The red line piece was taking out, thank you. The committee reserves for the district the right to reject any or all bids and accept the bid that appears to be in the best interest of the school district. That was MASC's
Yeah, all these are MASC.
suggestion based on a new ruling or a new law or something to that effect.
Yeah, Ross, can you clarify?
Yeah, I would have, without speaking with MASC, so if you look down 2 paragraphs further where it says the contract will be awarded to the responsive and responsible bidder offering the lowest price for the supply services specified in the invitation to bid, that's in line with Chapter 30B of Mass General Law. The portion that you're speaking to about the committee reserves for the district to right, that I believe would be out of alignment with Chapter 30B. And that's most likely why it's removed.
So the responsive and responsible bidder offering the lowest price, what protects us from, all right, I'm going to clarify this. I am not a business person at all. What protects us from somebody putting in a low bid and then they can't deliver what we need?
So we can specify within our bid documents what would constitute responsible, sort of like
So
as a
those
summary
words-
statement here. So we can say up to 3 years of experience, or showing, financials. There's different things that you can ask for during the bid that would be able to help you qualify somebody as responsible.
Like a bond?
Yeah, and so, for example, ABC is going out to bid right now for transportation, and they've been reviewing their bid with us, and there's certainly pieces within that there was language change on to make sure that there was responsible bidders awarded the contract. So you're right, so somebody who can't set up shop tomorrow and say that they are a a company that can provide a service with no history of doing so.
So there's protection in there for, or that language, responsive and responsible bidder, provides protection so that if somebody has a very low bid, but
Doesn't meet criteria of other things that are within the bid.
so
Correct.
you know that they don't have the capacity to do it, you are not
Correct.
required.
Yeah, and that responsive and responsible is directly out of Chapter 30B, and I'd have to look back at my manuals, but there's specific guidance on writing bids that fall in to help you make sure that it's responsive and responsible.
Yeah, it's a good question. The one thing that I dug in on in looking at these is trying to understand that little -1, which is weird. And what I found is that MASC is trying to move all of the policies that are for regional school systems to have that little suffix added to them.
That's awful.
So that's why the -1 is there, and I assume all of our policies will eventually have the -1 if it's specific to regionals. Okay.
Actually, I have a few questions about the procurement requirements. One is that it says that the chief purchasing officer may, if it would best serve the district interest, use a request for proposals instead of the above process. So like an RFP process means you're soliciting from people that you have relationships with or that you know about or something, but an invitation to bid is that you just put it out there and anybody can submit it. Is that the difference?
So a bid would require the responsible and responsive at the lowest cost. An RFP allows you to do two different things. It allows you to review non-price proposals. So you can look at the quality of the previous work, you can look at references, you can do all sorts of things, because this is something we did during our equity audit, initial RFP. So we sat down and looked at the proposals, and then outside of that, a separate review is done of the price proposals. So price is not necessarily the determining factor, although it's part of it, right? So it's a little bit different than a bid, which is straight to responsive and responsible at the lowest price for the bid that you're asking for.
Sure.
Mr. McCarron, would you also, for the benefit of the committee, also explain state contract?
Right, so there's a state contract list that we can go to without having to go out to bid, so we use that quite a bit for facilities, for example. So we quite often go just straight to the state bid list, because the state works with vendors to create all those types of things and get the best cost available for us.
Okay. And then the second question is kind of maybe just nitpicking, but didn't we change the title of Chief Purchasing Officer to reflect Ross's title in the other policy? And this one is still saying Chief Purchasing Officer. Is that like a technical term that's required, or should this reflect your Director of Finance and Operations?
Yeah, it's the technical term. The Director of Finance and Operations functions as the Chief Purchasing Officer.
Okay.
I would just add in, we've also had our Assistant Director, Renan Austin Sau, become trained and certified as a procurement officer, and Mr. Frieswick, our Facilities Director, is currently going through the training, so we have backup within the district on this.
Okay, my last question is, you mentioned that municipalities aren't bound by these.
They're still within the old version of Chapter 30B for that $50,000 to $100,000 threshold.
Okay, just from my experience in the building committee and the votes that were taken, the regional district acted as a municipality in those instances.
Yeah, they're not related.
Okay, different situation. Okay.
Not related.
Thank you.
Woo. Okay. So any other questions about these policies? Excellent. Thank you so much, Policy Subcommittee and Ross, for bringing these forward. And we will do our second reading at the next meeting and approve them if you see fit. The Policy Subcommittee will give us other updates later in their update. All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda is, yeah, crazy. Look at us. So we're all done with new business. There is no unfinished business. On to the subcommittee reports. I'm going to start with budget and warrant.
Budget and warrant met on December 19th. We got an update on the budget timeline. A sort of a non-update for E&D balance submission since there was no update. We discussed the November operations report, discussed the rate changes that were presented today, had a conversation about anticipated costs to insurance, and continuing our conversation about the formatting of revolving accounts quarterly reports. And our next meeting is, I don't know when our next meeting is. It's sometime in the middle of this month.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Anybody for communication?
Is there any report we haven't met? Did you?
We're good. Communication, no report?
No report.
Okay. The building committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to take a minute to give my report here. First and foremost, that we last met on the 21st of December. Our next meeting is January 18th. And right now we're in a bit of a lull period as far as the building project is concerned, as our consultants and our vendors continue with pre-construction obligations and responsibilities. But right now, what is about to be presented to the town of Bolton is the request of the district for exemptions from local zoning regarding the height of the building. That is still, our submission is still a work in progress and should be submitted forthwith. In addition to that, we should be receiving an update on our geothermal test wells at our next meeting. And lastly, and most importantly, this is the issue I want to take a minute of the committee's time on. So a lot of time at our last meeting was spent on a matter that is not necessarily attended to the building project or the building itself, but to the makeup of the committee. And so we've been getting a lot of petitioning from our OPM that it's time to fly from the nest, as it were. And they've been asking us to, shall we say, in their words, decouple our meeting schedules from our local body politic. Currently, that's a little bit problematic because one of our members is a select board member in Bolton. But the OPM and the architect are, they want to make sure that we have firm dates set for our upcoming meetings because they have to make sure that they have time to review the bids and the purchase orders that are coming in, the invoices. So in that regard, it was discussed, and there's no recommendation from the committee as of yet, but the issue which we would like to perhaps bring up at our next meeting or the meeting after that, because I'm getting a petition from one of our members who's getting antsy, that they'd like us to consider redefining the roles of our district committee members, our building committee members. So for those of you who weren't here a number of years ago when we put this committee together, the committee was put together with a significant degree of particularity. The representation on the board, or the committee I should say, is reflective of the representation on this committee. We have 5 members, who have 5 voting members from Stowe, 5 voting members from Lancaster, and 4 voting members from Bolton, with the superintendent as well for our 15th voting member. We also have our 6 advisory members who do not have voting authority. Each of the members of our committee basically fills a certain role. For example, we have one member who fills the role of FinCom member from one of our sending committees. We have one member who fills the role of a select board member from one of our committees. What we'd like to propose to the committee moving forward is that we kind of divorce ourselves from those definitions, and that we just look to put on the best individual. Keeping in mind, I think we want to keep the same representation from the sending communities, but we don't necessarily need to have a member of the FinCom at this time. We don't necessarily have a member of the Select Board at this time. You may not even need to have a member of this district committee if it was the committee's will. But we would like to see some relaxation, as it were, of the roles that are defined for each of our members who are on the district, on the building committee. And this has become particularly problematic because I'll mention him by name. Bob Sikansky, who is our select board representative from the town of Bolton, is not going to be running for re-election. but he has intimated an interest in continuing on with the building committee. From our perspective, it would be a huge loss for us to lose Bob Sikansky. Bob has been probably our most engaged member of this committee, excluding members of this district committee. Because I know Amy has a ton of work as well. I don't want to be kidding. Bob is very, but Bob has chaired 2 of our subcommittees. I think he has perfect attendance at all of our meetings. He has, he's always engaged, he's always informed. He brings a lot to our committee. Right now, if Bob steps down from the select board this spring, I didn't know what you said. Essentially, the current compilation of our committee will compel us to appoint another select board member, and because of the representation, it would invariably be from Bolton, which would invariably bring us back together where we have to be mindful of the select board meetings in Bolton. So we're looking to relax our compilation. I did suggest the last meeting that the committee would most definitely would want to maintain ownership of the 3 district committee members' positions on there. But after that, I think, we could say, look, we don't necessarily need a FinCom member, we don't necessarily need a select board member, and perhaps if one of our elected officials or appointed officials steps down, maybe we say, oh, well, we can appoint somebody who has maybe some architectural skills or building skills and what have you. So that's something that I would request that we put on either at the next meeting or a meeting after that, and that's it.
So noted. I have put it on the parking lot. So you just let us know when the building committee has its recommendation.
Yeah, it'll probably be the 18th. So.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Attorney Gleason, the letters for the zoning variance were sent out today.
Oh, well, there you go. Thank you.
I have a question about your subcommittee report, and I wonder, is this we shouldn't be concerned that this would be declined, right?
If I may, Madam Chair, there's not, we get to decide to make it by the committee.
No, I mean the zoning
Oh, the zoning?
approval.
There's not going to be any declination of that. Because if they decline it, we will find ourselves at 225 Main Street in Worcester.
Ah.
And we will make our position known to the Superior Court for the County of Worcester, what our position is with regards to what they call the Dover Amendment. So.
Got it. Okay. Amy?
Yeah, the building committee membership is determined by the school committee.
Correct.
But the building committee is going to talk about it at the next building committee meeting. Bring a recommendation. to the
I
school
don't necessarily think it has to be a recommendation from the building committee, but I think that generally it would be, I think, appropriate for the building committee to weigh in on this before it comes back before the district committee. Again, we are free to either accept or reject in whole or in part any recommendation of the building committee. So.
Yeah, the only thing I think we might be bound by is, I just recall a form that had categories that we had to make sure that we met certain categories, and some were optional and some weren't.
Right, but I think that at this point we have to just go back and just submit to the MSBA what the recompilation is. With regard, and again, I don't mean to speak out of turn here, but generally speaking, the MSBA defers to local authority on these matters.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Joe. Appreciate that. On to our next subcommittee report, and that is personnel.
Personnel sent out a survey. Thank you, Leah. And so hopefully we will got a good response from that, and we will look at the information gained from that and use it to tailor the training, which will happen beginning of next month. Yes. So.
Excellent. Thanks, Sharon. And anything else from policy?
There's 12 new policies that we're looking at. So it'll be a tech and school lunch extravaganza.
All right. We look forward to it. And you still have the family communication piece on the docket as well.
Yes.
Okay. On to advisory.
Advisory. So we had a meeting on 12/14. Basically, Ross and I are going to work on drafting an email to start soliciting some information from other auditors that we can kind of see what our options are for the next fiscal year. So, yeah, that's about it. We meet again the 18th, so hopefully we'll have more information then.
Excellent, thanks, Dina. Dear Jay.
Yep, so Dear Jay is convening next Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom, so any people in this room could participate. Agenda items include updates from the district and school committee, working group updates, and a more thorough discussion regarding the equity audit with members of our leadership.
Awesome, thanks, Jackie. And over to our CPAC rep.
Nothing new. I will be checking in with CPAC about when their next meeting is. I usually get a notification, and I haven't yet, so I will check in with them this week and probably next time have more to say.
Excellent.
Am I allowed to make an update on CPAC?
Sure, anything you know, fine.
So the CPAC is engaged in the hiring process for our next Student Services Director, and Ms. Devine is our representative of that group. I'm hoping will participate on the interview committee. I've already submitted your name on your behalf, so. But anyway, that process is moving right along. We're still collecting applicants over the next couple of weeks, but CPAC is helping with the parent representatives on that group.
Awesome. Okay, and over anything from OMAC? No, we're good. You're just quietly hanging out on our agenda, so that's fine. Items for next agenda, you guys can see that the calendar is, as always, full. The next meeting is our annual budget workshop, and Kirk has explained to me that he is going to be quite ready to provide the wish list, as it were, on the 17th, and then that process obviously will continue to evolve as it has each year. We have some unfinished business on the planning calendar.
Can I speak to that? Or
Oh.
is that an announcement?
Yeah, not really.
Okay.
Yeah. You are going to get many hours
Yeah.
to opine on that at the next meeting on the 17th. So unfinished business will be all of the votes that we just talked about, and that'll be that. Anything that you guys want to add to that meeting?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I just wanted, not to that particular meeting, but I want to add something for a future agenda, so.
Yes. What do you think?
My turn to talk? Or I
Yeah.
didn't know if you were, no, I didn't know if you were still.
No, go ahead.
All right, so with your permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to basically quote you
Yeah.
in regards to your, excuse my hoarseness, with regards to a legal opinion that we received from our counsel regarding a matter pertaining to our bylaws, where you qualified or you characterized the response as clear as mud. And to be frank, it was clear as mud. It was very confusing, and I think it's rife with problems. In this regard, I would suggest or request that somewhere in the near future, and it would probably be a 5-minute discussion, that we look to put destiny in our own hands and make a determination as to what essentially qualifies as a passing vote of this committee. I think in the response that Attorney Mello gave, it was very confusing, and I'm not certain. I personally don't agree with it, but it's the will of this committee, and I would love to see something where we perhaps define what exactly a majority is on this committee and what the minimum number of votes are required to pass a motion for this committee.
Got it. On the parking lot, and Kirk and I can discuss where it can land.
And you can see the strike-throughs are items that were inserted into future agendas.
Got it. Those are things we've already dealt with.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dana.
I think it said next there was just a vote on food services rate change. Did we see that already?
I think it's on the.
It looks like it's the following meeting is when it's being presented.
So I think that the presentation was supposed to happen, and then the vote just didn't get moved.
Right.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Should have it after the 7th.
When does it present?
It looks like we're on for the 7th.
And so therefore,
The 28th.
thank you, Dana. Anything else?
Can I just make one comment, please? Everybody remember that the 15th is a holiday when planning your 48 hours before agendas.
that's a good one. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
January 15th.
Is a holiday.
January
Got it.
15th.
So
And
anyone
I'll
that has
pay
a
day.
meeting that week has to be posted. You can't count that day for the 48.
Okay, awesome. All right. Always, guys, you can email me if you have anything that you want to add or think of later as you're driving home. Don't call me, email me. So I think that is it for our agenda. I'm going to move to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. Thanks, Jackie. And all those in favor? Yeah, that's a record, my friend.